Hello and welcome. I'm Prakrathi, an artist and art educator. Today we'll be learning to paint this beautiful negative painting technique using watercolors. You can find most of my works on Instagram and YouTube on the handles mentioned here. In this video, I'm using Indian handmade paper of 240 GSM, 100% cotton, a ceramic palette. Feel free to use any palette with separated wells. 2 jars of clean water, a brush that can hold good amount of water and has a good point, pencil, and watercolors from Thoovi Arts in various shades of browns and greens. This is what we will be painting. The key point is to maintain the shape of leaves throughout the layers. Let's begin. These are the various shades we'll be using. I'm using hooker's green, and then we will also need some permanent green, shadow green, which is basically a mixture of black and dark green, burnt sienna, orange, and burnt umber. Let's start by sketching out the leaves. We will be adding different shades in different parts of the paper. For the topmost layer of leaves that we will be painting, let's add bigger leaves as compared to the ones that we'll be adding later on. The topmost layer will have the lightest shades. Later on, as we go deeper and deeper, we start increasing the value of all the flowers or the petals that we are painting. Feel free to use just one color. And if you find this multicolored difficult, you can use just one color and increase the value as you go ahead. Now I've started with orange. Since the orange looks slightly dull, I'm mixing a little bit of yellow ochre to brighten it. I've applied an even wash of clean water all over the paper, and I'm adding oranges here and there on the paper. Now this has to be done wet on wet so that both the colors that you're using will merge with one another. Next, I'm using green. This is hooker's green. You feel free to use any green you have. Just make sure it is in the lightest value. Now we will apply wherever there is space between the oranges, we'll add the greens. Once you're done with this, we'll wait for it to dry. You can use a hair dryer or you can just let it dry. Next, I'm going to add some more petals or the leaves here in between the ones that we have already drawn previously. So what happens is, try to paint or draw the petals in such a way that both the colors come in one flower. This will give a very nice and interesting look. So I've tried to make flowers or those petals in such a way that there is green and orange in both of them in one flower. Next, we'll start adding the color in a deeper value. Here I've taken a little bit of burnt sienna and mixed it with orange, and I'm adding it wherever we had added orange previously. Next, make sure all the sides of this orange part are wet and quickly start adding the greener shade. You have to maintain the shape of the petals, because if you lose the shape here, it's going to be difficult later on and the overall picture is not going to look very neat. Start adding the greens wherever there is green from the previous layer, and quickly add in the next orange and brown mixture that we had created wherever there was orange from the previous layer, and wait for this layer to dry as well. Negative painting requires a lot of patience, so I have sped up the process because it's a repetitive process over and over, applying colors in a little slightly darker values. So it's a lot of fun. If you have time and you really enjoy painting, then this is really fun, and the end result is always so satisfying. I urge you to try painting this. If you are finding this shape difficult, you can just go with some circles or leaves or hearts or whatever, but the technique itself does not differ from what we are doing here. If you are just starting with watercolors and this is your first negative painting, then I suggest you use just one dark color like Prussian blue or any dark greens like Viridian blue or magenta. Go for these darker shades, start with the lightest color and then move on to increase the values. Now this is the same thing that we are doing here. We are taking more and more darker colors as we progress. Between each layers we are drawing more and more flowers in between, and make sure they are dry before you start adding the next layers. I'll be adding the veins here using the lifting technique. For this, I'm just running a wet brush in a single line and then lifting it with a tissue by dabbing the tissue right over this wet part. This method will work best once your painting is completely dry. Wherever there are overlapping flowers or petals, I'm adding slightly darker shade below it to show some depth. I'm adding greens and browns depending on where these flowers are lying in the painting. For flowers of lighter color, I've added some darker veins. That's it, we are done. Let's remove the tape and see how our painting looks. I hope you have enjoyed. I love the pigment of these Thoovi arts. They are very bright. You can see even after drying, they look as good as they were when they were wet. Until next video, bye bye.